Hello, everyone. This is Jimmy Cultist, and it's been a while. We kind of have not been doing any RPG videos in a long time, but I've decided to revisit the series based off a request. We honestly might do more, later. I'm currently busy going through the early, most basic steps of Dreams development. So I won't be getting ahead of myself with too many RPG videos since they tend to be more complex. But if anybody has more requests about this subject, we don't mind covering it now and then on the side. But for now, we're going to get into something that someone asked about, which was how would you go about, transitioning into battle in the overworld? If you encounter an enemy, like in Pokemon, where you encounter wild Pokemon in the tall grass, things like that. Well, we're going to cover that real quick. I'm going to have to set the puppet settings, just because I hate a lousy controllable puppet. And by the way, the base settings for Media Molecule, well, not that much turn speed, 250, not 1250. But the base settings I've always found are really lacking for the Media Molecule puppet. Turn down motion sensor movement if you don't want the puppet leaning whichever way your controller is leaning. But the base settings that MM programmed into the puppet are rather lackluster. I don't suppose it matters though, because it is just the base settings. It's a default. Who knows what they were going for. But let's go ahead and dupe out this puppet. Dupe being a duplicate. If you want to duplicate L1 and R2, simple as pie. We're going to go ahead and turn this puppet red to represent an enemy that we're encountering in the wilds. And we're going to go ahead and find our little scene. It's been a while since I've used that scene. Maybe a few months back, I think. But if we just type in RPG, we'll see two options here. I'll go with the public version. They're basically the same. I think though the public version is slightly more developed since we used it for our tutorial series. Honestly, we could just copy, we'll copy this fellow, and then we'll scope out of the group using L1 and X while holding R2. And now he's outside of the group. Always press this, because for some reason it creates a new group. But we're just going to go ahead and use this fellow as an example, of our basic enemy. Alright. Now this is our battle scene. I think I might just make a few points about how you would go about, making the landscape line up. I would make an entire scene with hills and such. It's kind of difficult because I don't really have these assets, already prepared. But I would just make like a basic scene, and then you make another basic scene. You could maybe have a void if you wanted to, like a black void. It really depends on how you want to go about it. You could either have a black void or a basic stage that's the same no matter where you are in the world. Like something akin to what you have normally. This black doesn't always work too well. Like just to make it match up more with our normal environment. And I would leave this stuff grouped. It's important to have it grouped. Now there is one minor thing that I might not leave grouped, and that's these characters. I would group them with their health bars. And I would keep these positions memorized. Let's go ahead and dupe these fellows out just so we know their positions. We'll make a handy little guide using paint flex. Let's set it to stamp, snap to surface. Alright, these are roughly where they should appear in-game. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and get into the right group. Alright, we're in the right group now. And we're just going to take this fellow and scope him out. Now the reason why we're going to be scoping him out is because we don't want him visible when we're emitting this scene. And we're going to create a little block here. We could technically just copy this one out. Press minus as always. By the way, did we do that with this fellow? He's still grouped, but you always got to press minus. It creates a third group. I don't know exactly what that is. But anyway, we've got this brick with a microchip on it. Invisible and non-collidable as always. Well, not invisible, but we'll make it invisible. Non-collidable, and we're going to change the appearance of it somewhat. But we're going to call this transition. Basically, this is going to occur when you encounter an enemy. Now you're going to want your little stage somewhere where it won't be seen. You could maybe put it high above the map or underneath the map. There's lots of ways of going about this. We're going to go with above the map, though. And we're going to put out a timeline, set it to play once. And we're going to have this little handy-dandy thing follow us around the scene. So we're going to put a teleporter on it. Set it to match target orientation. Actually, let's not do that. Turn that off. I just realized the reason why you don't want it to match target orientation. We could have a smooth little transition, which I'll show you in a bit. Real quick, we're just going to create a tag for the teleporter to follow, labeled player. Use grid snap to set it so that the Z is pointing forward, X pointing to the left, and Y pointing to the ceiling or the sky or the whatever firmament you prefer. Anyway. And we're going to have a little look at rotator, which we can set to follow a tag. And the tag we're going to set is enemy. And we're going to set it to stay upright. And set it so that it's facing forward away from the chip. Turn off Y, otherwise it will look up and down, and we don't want it looking up and down, we just want it looking left and right. Also, let's make sure this thing is non-collidable. Alright, it is. Turn off gravity and physics. Alright then. Or density, as it would be called, not physics, but same thing. And now, what's going to happen is, basically, we're going to encounter our enemy when we come within view of him. And this little camera is going to lock eyes on him. And since it's going to be a transition camera, we're going to leave it to smooth, transition time 1.5. And we're going to disable controller input so that when the enemy sees you and is coming after you, you can't really run away. There are lots of different ways of doing this. If you wanted to have, you know, have him able to run away, you might want to make that an option during combat. And then we're going to have something that transitions or closes out the scene, like this. If you do reverse fade in, select these, and you'll have a nice little circle that closes in for, you know, the fight. And we're going to create a zone. This is going to be a zone of detection. Trigger zone. And when it detects an enemy, it will begin the process. Not only that, but once we've... Oh, wait a minute. Don't touch this guy. This guy is actually... Let's just go ahead and power him off for now. This is the fellow we want to be messing with. The Overworld version, if you will. We'll call it Overland. It's quicker. We're going to put a tag on him labeled enemy. Pull it up here. Push this down like that. Similar to the player. And once we get close enough, it'll detect this tag. Now another thing I want to do when this tag is detected is make it so that the enemy actually will approach you. And we're going to slow him down a little bit. It's a scope out. L1 and square if you want to mess with his speed settings. But we're going to make him walk at 0.8 and run at 3.0. Also, turn up his acceleration and deceleration to 25%. Alright, everything's good. And we're going to create a little node, which is basically going to be his follow behavior. Let it load a little bit. And we're going to create another node. And the reason why I like to create nodes, in case I have to access this stuff later and change it, it helps to have a node. Just going to hook it up to follow and hook it up to turn, and we're going to set look at player, so he'll naturally turn towards a tag labeled player and naturally follow a tag labeled player. Very simple. And we're going to take this. Actually, you could alternatively, if you don't want to use a counter, you could use a selector. Just take the B output, stick it in there, and take this, hook it up to the B output, and voila! He'll start running towards the player once we're within range. Oh, another thing you're going to have to do, I forgot to mention, is turn the power off of this. Of course, we're going to have to match the lighting, so let's go into here and take this global lighting settings. Just take it out. It'll naturally be removed from the group once we put it down on this handy little microchip. Yeah, we don't seem to be able to possess. Why could we not possess? Did I mess with the settings somehow? Oh, it could be this. It's probably blocking. Make sure it isn't set to imp interaction, otherwise you'll probably collide with it. Now, as you see, the enemy is doing what we want, although we might want to increase the range of this a little bit. At present, it's a bit small and a bit wimpy. We want a better encounter distance than that. Alright. We also want to create our transition. Since we've got everything else in preparation, how do we do that? Well, we just go in here and create a little handy-dandy switch. And basically all this switch is going to do is turn on our encounter battlefield, which we're going to represent with a selector. We're going to take the B output and hook it up to the power of our little encounter. Now, there are reasons why you might not want to use the power, and why you might actually want to just make this invisible and turn the power on. The power sometimes works. The issue is if you have variables at play inside here, they will not be functioning when the power is off, and that's not always ideal. Now, another thing you can do is you can hook up a node to the power of some of these things. Well, you have to be careful, because if you have variables again at play, hook it up to the controls and the camera, that should do it. And if there's any kind of UI, you'll want to shut that off. I don't know if we can be bothered to shut off all the UI right now, so we're just going to go ahead and connect this, although normally you don't want to do that. I would hunt down all the UI normally, but I don't really want to take all the time to do that. Well, maybe we should. We shouldn't be sloppy about this. We'll do an action recorder. Go in real quick, hunt down the UI. Backdrop off. Oh, we forgot to do something. Delete the action recorder. Always remember, when you're doing an action recorder, to turn this on. Also, maybe turn off blending. That's kind of easier. We're just going to turn off the backdrop. Turn off all these, and if you put them in a microchip, it might make it more handy, like if you separated them out from the other logic. Then you could just shut off the microchip and not have to select them all. And let's make sure, oh yes, there's two things we have to shut off in here. Actually, we might be able to just shut off these entire chips, because there doesn't appear to be any variables inside here, or ever would be, to be honest. It's just basically something that makes the health bar stay up when you're in combat, so we could honestly just turn this off, and that would be just fine, probably. Now, character select, there's obviously some stuff in here we're going to have to turn off. I think that's everything, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll just go ahead and connect this to here. I tend to like to turn keyframes that shut everything off, like shut off HUD. I tend to like them to be purple. That's a weird preference of mine that doesn't necessarily have to extend to your games, but color coding things for memory's sake is sometimes useful. Now we're going to take the B output and stick it right in there. And basically these characters and things will not be visible, but they will have power. So if there's variables at play, they can still be active during the game. Alright, let's go ahead and give this a little try. Oh, we forgot to turn off something else. Where is that exactly? Actually, wait a minute. If we would actually want this on, you should hook up a NOT gate. That way it'll turn everything off until you power the thing on, and then it'll be, you know, reverse. Anyway, that's an encounter. Except our transition isn't working. And that's because I did something stupid and I did not connect this to the B output. I am rather absent-minded, this much is certain. Alright, so that's how you get transitioned into the battleground, but what about the enemies, you might say? How do I put those in there? Well, what you might want is some kind of chip that, you know, controls how many enemies get emitted and what kind. We're going to do the most simple form for now. You could even make it randomized. But basically all you want to do... Actually, maybe this shouldn't be up here. Maybe it should be in this little thingamajab. We'll just take out a chip and label it Encounters. If it will load. And we'll have two possible outcomes for an encounter. We're going to take a randomizer. I haven't talked much about these. We're going to set it to true random. But basically, the randomizer swaps between two outputs. And you can set an input to randomize, which basically turns on the outputs, and this shuffles the outputs. But we're going to go ahead, and we're going to create two red timelines, which you can label whatever you please. And on these timelines, we are going to put one emitter, maybe more. We'll talk about that. We're also going to turn the power on of this lovely gentleman here and emit his whole group. Use precise move so that you don't get, you know, out of position. And we're going to use these squares as a guide. Set his lifetime to endless. Emit once, yes. No velocity or emit speed should be on. I think we're all peachy in that regard. So this will be one enemy encounter. Now, the other random output, or random input, shall be two enemies. And we're going to have to dupe out two emitters for this scenario. And we're just going to have a little timeline. And you can set up different types of enemies. There's no reason to go with just one. But that requires a little bit more explanation. So that might be a separate affair, talking about different enemy types and how to generate them and all that. But for now, we're just going to do one. We're going to take a simple little switch. Hook it into both of these. Pull this back. And since it's set to play once, it should work just fine, just peachy. And we're going to take a little node, connect it to the power, double check, make sure these are set to play once. They are indeed set to play once. Now, we're going to go back to our encounter. And you could have a thing set up in here that detects what kind of enemy you are encountering. Red guy. Simple little tag. And you could just have a zone over here that gets turned on. And it's set to in scene. And it's red guy. That means that the moment he's triggered, that will go off, thus triggering this little tag here. And we're going to go ahead and hook that up to that timeline. There's also other ways you could do this. You could use wireless receivers if you don't want to have this big long, you know, thing here, but we're going to do it the simple way for now. Now, if this works properly, it did not. Why did it not work properly? Red guy. Oh, we did not we capitalized guy. It should be lowercase. A object lesson in how tags are very finicky and you want to pay attention to these things. Alright, now let's try it. And there you go. That's how you transition to another, you know, plane of existence for a battle. There are lots of other ways you could do it. You could put this in a black box so that no light, you know, is seen if you just want to have like a void or something. If you want to do it Earthbound style where they're in some kind of trippy environment, that can be done. Maybe we'll test that out. Let's go ahead and demonstrate how that would be done real quick. Actually, if you wanted sunlight, you could still have sunlight as well. Let's go ahead and show you how that would be done. All you have to do is take out An opaque fleck. Make it black, of course. I won't be making this trippy, but I will be making it a void, so you'll be getting basically the gist. And just roughly line it up with the edges of the stage. We might have to move the camera just a little bit. It is true that we haven't really prepared for this in terms of the template that I've created. We could make a larger black void that, you know, allows more room for the camera. But I'm just doing a quick demonstration of how you could create a black void. And this one's kind of obvious. You can sort of see the corners and everything. It might not be so obvious if you made it physical rather than flex, but let's try that out. And of course you can see it because I haven't added it to the group. But there you go, that's a black void. Now all you would have to do, I think, to make it a little bit less obvious, one thing you could do that'd be very simple, and I think this would fix a lot of your problems, is to turn the fog distance to maximum using a keyframe. Because the fog distance is what allows you to see the outline of that. Yeah, that's a nice black void. But that's all for now. I hope you found this helpful. We're going to give a quick shout out to our little monthly subscribers. All glory to them. There they go. They are monthly coffee subscribers, not YouTube. And that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. If you wish to support our earnest insanity, you can check the links in the description to donate or buy merch. Until next time, goodbye.